So, yeah, and that's another thing about your channel is even though, like, anytime, I remember in the past I would search for Castlevania on YouTube to get more information, your channel will pop up, even though it's not like a Castlevania-themed channel, but it's one of those things where it's such a niche but interesting topic. It's interesting that there's not a Castlevania explained necessarily.
Yeah.
You know?
It didn't start out as that. I started doing YouTube back in 2012.
Cool.
And I was doing kind of like I didn't know what I wanted it to be, but the show was called Dude, You Haven't Played This Game on my Dongled channel. And essentially, to keep it short, it was edutainment. It was skits. It was skits, but it was also in-depth reviews, and it was designed, it was modeled after Happy Video Game Nerd, 16-Bit Gems. Those were like my two big favorite channels, and then of course maybe a little tiny bit of Pat the NES Punk and AVGN. So I just kind of homogenized all the stuff that I was watching, and I was like, I have a journalism background because I have a journalism degree, so I was like,
oh cool,
I've been wanting to write. I was writing freelance at the time for Retro Collect, a European website.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I need to do something. Like, I need to do something creative and different than what I'm doing right now, because I'm just not, I'm enjoying it, but I need to do something beyond this. And so that's kind of how everything started. And probably, I don't know, like maybe 7, 8 years so into it, I was like, I need to laser focus on one thing. And Castlevania was my thing. Like, that was always one of my favorite franchises growing up. And I just, really got into collecting Castlevania stuff around 2008 or so, where I was just like going on eBay and buying anything I can, because I was trying to collect all the games I didn't own at that point. And before I knew it, I had almost an entire North American collection complete in box for every Castlevania ever made at that point. I'm missing like 2 pieces. I'm missing like Kid Dracula's box and manual, and I'm missing Dracula X's box and manual. That's it. I don't count Lords of Shadow, though. So I do have...
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
I do have Lords of Shadow.
As we talk.
I do. I know. Like, I talk a lot of trash about Lords of Shadow, but I do own it. I have it on Xbox with the Mirror of Fate downloadable thing, and but I just can't bring myself to own the second one because I've just heard so many bad things about it. And
I had started it and never.
I heard it's terrible.
Yeah.
So but otherwise, I own pretty much every Castlevania game for the North American release, and eventually I'll get to the Japanese and the PAL and all the wacky stuff. But anyways, as far as Castlevania, I got into it. I've told the story many times, but I got into it in like 1990. I want to say it was either 89 or 90. I cannot remember. And I was relatively new to owning the NES. My grandfather bought it for me as like a birthday present or a holiday present. I can't remember. And my first 3 games were Metroid, Mario, like Mario Duck Hunt, and Zelda. So I started off with 3 of the best games of all time. And but I didn't know what Castlevania was until I went over a friend of mine's house, this guy Matt, and just was on, play date, whatever, just hanging out with him. Back then we call him just like, I just want to go to a friend's house. We never call them play dates.
Go over.
Right. Just go over. Can I go over your house?
Yeah.
And so I went over his place, and he was showing me all his NES stuff. And he was like, I've got this game, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. And I was like, what's that? I've never heard of it before. And he put it in, and we started playing it. And I was just blown away at the atmosphere. That was like the very first horror thing that I ever really got invested in. Like, I saw like Duckula. Remember that show Duckula? Yeah. Yep, I remember watching Duckula, and that was probably the very, very first like Halloween-ish thing I watched like Masters of the Universe, and I watched Ninja Turtles and all that stuff. But like in terms of horror, I wasn't really into horror because I didn't know what it was. I mean, crap, I was scared of E.T., back then, But when it came to Castlevania 2, I just got sucked in, and I was like, I have to own this. And I didn't own it for a very long time. But I didn't really like, beyond Simon's Quest, I didn't know anything about Castlevania until Super Castlevania 4. And it was the Nintendo Power issue that was the first time that I ever, I think, subscribed or renewed my subscription to Nintendo Power. And it came in the mail with that sick cover with Simon on it. And that was it. After that, I was hooked, and I was like, this is one of my favorite franchises. And I got that. Maybe I rented it or I bought. I can't remember. I think I got it as a birthday present or something from somebody or from my dad or something, and just fell in love with the franchise from then on.
That's really cool. Yeah, because it is something about that early Castlevania that like it kind of started it, and it's the atmosphere. It really is, because like even I love horror things, like less nowadays with kids for some reason. I don't know. I think less, but like back in the day, like the action horror stuff, Evil Dead 2, Jason, stuff like that. And I'm curious. So for me, after Super Castlevania, even though I would play them back then, it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait for the next of this game. I don't think that was in my head. And then there was the Genesis game, which even for me at that time, that was really hard. I remember it was that and Super Contra, because I really like Konami stuff in general. The Contra. No, hardcore. Yeah. I think that's what I meant. Just super hard. And I always was like disappointed that I love this stuff, but it's so hard. But I wonder if that's what like kept me to like keep going with it. But
maybe.
I didn't play. So if we were to go in order of releases, there's obviously Rondo of Blood, but I didn't play that until the Japanese.
Nobody knew.
The PSP release.
PSP re-release, yeah.
There was Dracula X, which I had played it somehow, and then I probably rented it, and then later and this was still late 90s, early 2000s, where that was hard to come by still, but at GameStop, Funkoland, whatever.
Oh yeah. And at a low print run because it was a late release for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. And so what's interesting though is still at that time, like I don't think it was until Symphony of the Night, which I didn't even play when it first came out on PlayStation. I remember the 32X game. I had a 32X. I remember them talking about a 32X game, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But I don't think I played it until either right before Castlevania Chronicles. I think that was another PlayStation game. Okay. Because then I think I was at a point where I had a job, money. I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting my favorite stuff. And so that's when I first played Symphony of the Night. And then I think from then on, I was like, okay, now I want to be an expert in Castlevania. Just because I was also a fan of Metroid. And I know you said you got Metroid along with the NES. So
yeah, it was the same for me. Metroid and Castlevania really kind of went hand in hand in terms of what I was really excited about. The 3 game series that are my favorites are Mega Man, Metroid, and Castlevania. So, you got a run and gun, an action like exploration, and then like just a action platformer, the traditional classic Vania style. Right. But when Metroid came out, not came out, but when I got Metroid, I was obsessed with it. I was just so sucked into the atmosphere and the vibes and the world. Yeah. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite Metroid games, just because it's so lonely and atmospheric.
Right.
And so that was really what I looked for in a game back then. And growing up, seeing games evolved, I always looked for that atmosphere to continue. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why I like single player games so much, is because you can experience it all on your own, and you can really just explore, and you get to just suck into this giant world that is all your own. It's all your experience at that point. And so those two franchises, even though there was such a huge lull between like Metroid 2, and then Super Metroid, and then just nothing until Metroid Prime, it was still one of my top franchises. And so Castlevania kind of really took on a special meaning back then for me, because I didn't even get Dracula X when it came out. I saw it in the magazines and was like, oh, sweet, there's a new Castlevania game coming out. This is awesome. I'm going to get it when it comes out, or ask for it for the holidays or whatever. And I just didn't get it. I just never got it until, obviously more recently. And so it was one of those games where I was just like, I just totally forgot about it. And it wasn't until like Symphony, I didn't own a PlayStation. I was a Nintendo kid through and through back in the day. So like I went from NES to Super NES, and then Super NES, I went from that to my PC, actually. I was a big Doom guy. So I was playing Doom, Final Doom, Ultimate Doom, and I was playing that. And then, because my parents gave me a choice, they were like, you can get a N64 or a computer.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, those are your choices for right now. And I chose computer because I wanted to learn about computers. And I'm really glad I did that, because I was able to become more familiar with computers and everything. But yeah, the N64 was one of those systems I was just like, I really, really want this. And eventually when Zelda Ocarina of Time, when that came out, I got the N64 for like I think it was like that holiday season, and fell in love with my N64. And then it was shortly after that Castlevania 64 came out, and that was one of the games that I got at launch, and I was just completely blown away by Castlevania 64, the atmosphere, the vibes. I loved Reinhard Schneider's costume and Carrie Fernandez. I just that felt like a true rebirth for me for Castlevania. I got sucked back into it, and I totally forgot about Symphony. I was reading in like, I think it was Game Fan or whatever. Like so it was like nobody cared about 2D back then. Yeah. Really. The hardest of hardcore arcade lovers did. And there was definitely a much more minority niche voice that was very vocal about loving 2D games over 3D games. But back then, we all just wanted 3D games. We were like, I don't want this 2D stuff. Like, this is all stuff I grew up with. Like, I want 3D. And so Konami was really touting Castlevania 64 to be the new thing. Yeah. Symphony was very much by the wayside, and Symphony didn't sell that well when it first came out. Like it obviously sold much better over time, but Symphony, despite getting great praise from the press, there was still a pretty vocal amount of press people that were like, this game is great, but it's not 3D. You know what I mean? And so Castlevania 64 was really seen as the future. And when that came out, it was too little too late in many people's eyes, because if the game had released exactly like that, but a year prior, it would have done huge. Absolutely huge for Konami.
I think by that time, it seemed like 3D actually found its footing, even though things were still experimental. Because I remember the first time playing Mario 64, Shadows of the Empire, and it's like, oh my God. It really, honestly, the first time I played Castlevania 64, I'd rented it, and that blew me away, just because it's not like they built it like a traditional 3D game. They were just saying, how can we do 3D? Because I think the team didn't do 3D before. I think it was like their first time doing something 3D.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. Okay.
It was their very first 3D game. That's literally, they were asked in an interview, what is the one thing that you took away from developing Castlevania 64? And I think it was the good, like Yuji Shibata or whatever, said how to program in 3D or like how to create a game in 3D. You know what I mean?
But it still has, and it's this thing about early 3D games, where it seems like they tried to program in some sort of weightiness to your character, more than just being in a 3D space. I felt like the movement, which is kind of traditional, and that's something I want to get to with Castlevania, as they would animate. A lot of what I think Konami was proud of was their animations of even if it was just simple back in the day, but as they would continue and add those animations. So yeah, N64, okay, Symphony of the Night. Okay, when the Game Boy Advance era came about, were you all in on that in the Castlevania?
Oh yeah. I remember I was working at Toys R Us in the game section.
Nice.
And it was in 2001. It was the summer of 2001. I had just graduated high school and I was going into college, my first semester. And that summer, I worked at Toys R Us. And of course, that was the summer that the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance released with Circle of the Moon as a launch title. And I remember getting the little Nintendo Power. I still have it, actually, the Nintendo Power triple strategy guide that had F-Zero, Mario Advance, I think.
Yes.
And Circle of the Moon. Circle of the Moon. Yeah. And so I was all in. I sold my Super Nintendo to get a PlayStation. So I sold it to a friend of mine. And then I sold my PlayStation to get a Dreamcast. And then when Castlevania Resurrection got canceled, I was so angry, I sold my Dreamcast to get a Game Boy Advance. And that was the last time I sold a console in terms of like all my games, all my like the whole console and everything. That was the last time I did it because I lost so much money constantly selling all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm just not going to do it again. But yeah, I got Circle of the Moon. And the biggest complaint I always had with Circle of the Moon was playing it on that Game Boy Advance. It was such a dark game visually. You couldn't see it. It wasn't until the SP came out that you could really play that game.
Yep. I think I had a light attachment because I think it was at my desk in a lamp. I remember I had a way to do it. And the SP came out right at the right time because I'd graduated. I was working a job. It was a security job. So I was sitting places that was dark a lot. So having the light helped. But
nice.
You know what? That was a neat era. And because it was where we were kind of independent, we could do what we want with our money. And it was like Game Boy Advance, Circle of the Moon, a bunch of other cool Game Boy Advance games. Like that's a killer system. But what's funny about Circle of the Moon is at the time I was like, I can't believe I have Symphony of the Night portable. Even though looking back, it's but at the time it was just amazing to get that we didn't call it Metroidvania at the time. I don't even know how I was.
We called it Castlevania.
Maybe I was saying Symphony of the Night or something.
Yeah, maybe. I've never understood the obsession with it in terms of the actual like game itself. Like I've always called Castlevania. Like, oh, I'm playing a Castlevania game. And like people online, I love to rile people up because they get so upset whenever I challenge the de facto ideal of this whole classicvania, Metroidvania thing. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people call Metroid games Metroidvania. I'm like, no. It is just Metroid. Like, and it's kind of the same in my mind for Castlevania. If you're playing a game that's got the name Castlevania in it, it's Castlevania. That's it. I never look at it like, oh, I'm playing a Metroidvania, but I can understand why people get so upset about it because there's such a split faction of fans with Castlevania. There's the classicvania fans like myself, who predominantly grew up with the series from the 80s through the 90s through the early 2000s. And, to many of us, we kind of feel like the franchise died a little bit when the N64 games came out. Like after that, when Resurrection got canceled, in my opinion, that was it. Like the franchise changed so much and so drastically. And then you've got the Lament, era, the Koji Igarashi era. And I like those games. I like the PS2 games. I like the Game Boy Advance games. I like the DS games. I like them. I'm not a big fan of the Sorrow games, mostly just because it just feels a little bit too foreign to me. It's a little bit too alien. Just like the idea of Castlevania in the future.
Right. It's funny you say that because I remember seeing that and being like, okay, but in my mind I'm like, that's not That's not the Hammer or Universal Monster style, like gothic horror, but plus Japanese influence.
Right.
On it. It's almost like where it was going. I see what you mean there. In fact, I remember, I think it was by order of Ecclesia when that had come out. That was the last time I had bought a Castlevania and didn't beat it.
Okay.
And I think also my firstborn was born not too long after that, so I think it was more of like life also.
You had no time.
But it's interesting about the Sorrow games because I feel like when Aria of Sorrow came out, that just looked amazing on the Game Boy Advance. It's and then so this gets into this other part as we keep talking about the games, because I think connecting back to what you said before, what these Igarashi Castlevanias did for me was put me in that atmosphere, in that mood, because of the music. Michiru Yamane, if I'm saying your name correctly.
Yep.
I that's like the best music of any video game series for me. And it's interesting how consistent it is. It's not like, that song or that game had some bangers. And you could even just say it's Konami in general, making sure that the music is consistent. And so, okay. So we had those 3 advanced games. I wanted to talk about Harmony real quick.
Sure.
Because I love that.
Harmony. I love Harmony.
Oh, okay.
Harmony is actually my favorite of the GBA
trilogy.
Agree. Yeah. I really like the vibes, the atmosphere, and it very much felt like a return to form atmospheric wise and visually, sound wise. A lot of people hate on that soundtrack, but I really like it. It's different. It's a little frizzy, a little frazzled kind of sounding, but it's really good.
But I think we're kind of used to that sound from games we'd played before. So again, it kind of brings you back into that atmosphere. I also like the map design, even though it could be annoying. But if you really look at it as it's a classic Vania, where this whole section is a level. Yeah, and they haven't really broken up like that, and so I really enjoyed that. We get to the Sorrow games, right? And I love what they did on the DS because of the touchscreen stuff, or it's more of because you have a map that you can look at right there.
I bought Circle of the Moon, and then I didn't buy Harmony or Aria when they came out. I skipped over them. I don't remember why. I think a large part of it was I was just like, I don't want to play as another white-haired character. Initially, right. I think initially that was my suspect. That's what I suspect my attitude was about it.
Because I think that's what they were leaning into.
Yeah.
Like, let's do Symphony of the Night again.
Right, pretty much. And I mean, listen, I get it. Symphony is very critically acclaimed. But I skipped over those. I think I picked up Chronicles used because I was working at a different game store. Okay. And so I got it for maybe $14-$19 or something like that. I think it released for $20 on PlayStation 1. It was a budget title.
Yeah, it must have been.
It was, yeah. And so when it comes to those games, I'm totally missed Aria of Sorrow. And it wasn't until Dawn of Sorrow came out that I had some sort of disposable income enough that I could buy games more regular. I bought Dawn. I didn't really play it much. I didn't really like it. I bought Portrait. I love Portrait. And then I bought Order of Ecclesia and absolutely loved it.
Okay. That's cool. Cause
my favorite.
Cause Dawn of Sorrow, I like it, but it's almost like part of me sees, and I could be that I was starting to get really critical, but I think it's the Julius mode because it's a DS game with a traditional castle. It's not where there's segments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you got a whip version. You can use a whip. So it's almost like it kind of brought some traditionalness to the new Metroidvania formula.
Sure. Yeah. I just hate the art style. I absolutely hate the Dawn art style because they changed it.
Was that when it went anime?
Yeah, that was when they went super anime, and then they continued it through Portraits. I can forgive Portrait a little bit more. I understand that they were trying to go for a younger user base, so it makes sense. But I think for whatever reason, I think I like Portrait's visuals a little bit more than Dawn's.
I almost feel like Portrait is the culmination of the best of what you can do. Even though I'm not always a fan of the segmented levels, I still then like it because that's kind of classic. It's like, here's this level. So, but I love the two characters. I love the idea of switching between two characters or having both of them. Like, I love that. It's almost like you have more action buttons for combat. Like, the music, I would say, out of every game, that is my favorite soundtrack. Even though there are probably more favorite songs on others. But okay, and then Order of Ecclesia, that one is just a well-made game. I think just at that point on the DS, what Koji Igarashi was capable of and all the talent around it, it's like the ultimate game of that time, because really that was even for me, like the last one until really Grimoire of Souls, even if you would count that, because I know there was the multiplayer one. I didn't really care, the
fighting game Judgment.
No, I haven't even played that.
Harmony of Despair. Harmony of Despair. Yeah, Harmony was a fun experiment. I thought that was pretty unique and different. But that was right around the time though where I just felt like the franchise was getting a little too cookie cuttery. With a lot of the visuals, they were literally just ripping sprites. People joke about Morgan's sprite from Darkstalkers, how they just reused the sprite for like 15 years. And then finally, when Tatsunoko versus Capcom came out, they were like, okay, we'll redo Morgan's visuals.
Oh, that's when they did
she's
it.
not. And so it's kind of the same thing with Castlevania. The reason why I think that we were able to get so many Castlevania games in such a short time period is because Igarashi was able to reuse a lot of the same assets. And because of that, it was able to keep the budget nice and light. And so, most of the budget that was going towards those games was very small. So that's why they were able to release so many Castlevania games. I mean, we were eating good in the 2000s, but then we hit a drought in, they were really at that point like, okay, there's not much else that we can do with this. So what are we going to do? Where's the franchise going to go next? They tried the fighting game. They tried the arcade game, that Castlevania, the arcade, which really should have been on the Wii. In my opinion,
the whip stuff instead of a fighting game.
And it's so dumb because Igarashi was interviewed about that during the Judgment time period. And they were like, well, we wanted to come out with a game where you didn't have to constantly whip, with your hands or whatever. So they wanted to make a classic style game where you didn't have to whip. And then they go and make an arcade game where that's literally what you're doing. Yeah. And that game really should have been on the Wii. There's no reason as to why they didn't put that game out on the Wii. But anyways, during that time period, they were like, okay, we need to come out with something new, something fresh, something different for Castlevania. And so from what I understand, I don't know 100% if this is true or not, but I believe what they did was they said, okay, Iga, what do you got? And he was like, we got Symphony of the Night 2, or what we suspect would have been Symphony of the Night 2. There was a very short teaser trailer that was released. I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 2010 or 2009. I can't remember, but it was shortly after Judgment and Order of Ecclesia, because they came out like within, I think, very short time between each other. They were actually linked together. You could unlock content in Judgment with Order of Ecclesia with the Nintendo. You could unlock Shinoa or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, but yeah, so they didn't, I guess they were going to come out with this game, or they were working on it. And so they released this little teaser trailer with like Alucard in it, and everyone lost their mind. And, all the fans were like going crazy. Oh my God, we're going to get like a sequel to Symphony of the Night or something like that. And then crickets. And so from what I understand happened was they said they outsourced it, and they were like, okay, we want to try something different. And so Mercury Steam was like, hey, we're going to pitch you a remake to Super Castlevania 4. And Konami was like, okay, that sounds really cool. and there's actually footage it's like pre-release footage. It's like beta footage or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a short like cutscene of a character that looks like Simon Belmont, and it's Lords of Shadow, but it's with Simon Belmont, and it's like pre-release stuff that was used to pitch the idea of a Super Castlevania 4 remake. And then Hideo Kojima got his hooks into it, and then they made Lords of Shadow.
That's right. I forgot the Kojima effect. Yeah. Konami had an interesting web of creators and not really understanding how to juggle them, you know? And yeah, that's very interesting because I liked Lords of Shadow, but I never was like, oh, this is an awesome Castlevania game. For me, it's like, oh, this is like another God of War game because I like the God of War games. And yeah, Mercury Steam, because look, I'm a huge fan of Metroid. I know you said you were too. I didn't really care for that Metroid that came out on Switch that was from Mercury Steam.
Dread?
Yeah, I didn't really care for that. Did you?
I liked Dread a lot. Yeah, I like Dread.
Good.
I haven't finished it, but I like Dread.
Oh, okay.
And I liked their previous game too, Samus Returns. That was really good too.
That was good. But again, it's like maybe because they were taking something that already existed and then expanding on it, like what they wanted to do with Lords of Shadow originally.
Yeah, there's rumors right now that they're working on a Super Metroid remake.
Oh, okay. See,
Mercury Steam.
I think that would be good if it's like a remake and then they add stuff. But so like what's interesting is during that time, 2010, 2011, where it seemed like Castlevania was going away, I actually ended up shifting my attention to the Souls genre, realizing, wait a minute, this is 3D Castlevania.
A lot of people say that. Yeah, I disagree, but
okay. Because at first I didn't really think that until later. I was thinking the things I like about, and mainly Igavanias, where it's the exploration, or it's what does this boss look like? Am I going to figure out how to beat this boss? Even though that's classic Vania stuff too. But and this kind of gets into what like stuff that we like about Castlevania, and it's really cool already. It sounds like there's similarities, but some divergence. Like for me, and I love the term search action. I think that's what they try to say is the official term, but I do like that exploration aspect that was introduced with Symphony or previous games, actually.
Sure.
It was opened up more. And so that music, what I was talking about before with animation, I think when they would come out with a new Castlevania, they were like, how do we make this animation where the character stands out?
Yeah.
Boss design. So it's funny when we get this Belmont's Curse, my first thought is none of that's there.
No.
Even though I want to be positive.
I'm going into it with a very open mind. I was very much critical of Dead Cells because it was a roguelike, and I'm not a roguelike guy. I did pick up the Dead Cells game. I talked about it on my channel. I did a whole video I think I did 2 videos where I like revisited it again or whatever, or talked about it. I played through I didn't play through, but I played quite a bit of the Return to Castlevania DLC. And to me, it was a pretty good, it felt like a good tribute to Castlevania without actually being a Castlevania game. I love the snappy combat, and so that really kind of engages me and makes me interested in seeing what they're going to do with this. But I'm glad that it is not a roguelike, that Belmont's Curse is going to be a Castlevania game with search action elements, exploration and everything. So I'm very curious to see what they do with the characters and everything. I wish they would just actually tell us that it's Sonia Belmont, because at this point it's just ridiculous that they're, not saying anything.
Why wouldn't they? Because it's almost like a conflict of their thoughts, because it's almost like, well, who would care? We're making a new Castlevania. Who cares if we tell you who it is or not? Only the old fans are going to care. And even if only the old fans are going to care, this game doesn't look like an old Castlevania. So
a lot of people though are really getting their panties in a bunch about the fact that it's Sonia or not Sonia or whatever. In my mind, she's not Sonia until they say she's Sonia.
Yeah.
So she's a Belmont successor. You know, she is a Belmont. That's all we pretty much know about her at this point, and that's really all we need to know until they tell us more. So I'm of the mindset, like, you know, why hold it back? This most recent video that they did with Triple I Initiative or whatever was a joke. I mean, like, there's hardly any new information. It was such a waste of time. And there was such hype over it too. And we learned almost everything that we knew, you know, when they announced it. So it's
even some details from watching the video made you question some things. And I think Simply AJ that does breakdowns, he brought up something I didn't notice, was like how the characters go through the enemies.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
somebody mentioned that. Yeah.
And that's I'm like, oh yeah, that's also another thing in Castlevania where you run into an enemy and then you go flying and then maybe you fall on something good. Like, that's part of that whole. So it really does seem like there's something different going on here now. And you brought up
it could have been a beta version, or you know, because the game is still in development, they don't really want to show you getting knockback. You know what I mean? Like, that's generally when you watch a video game trailer, you're not seeing a character constantly get your main hero getting injured constantly. You know what I mean? Generally, you're watching them kick ass and do all these crazy things. Now, is that something that I think they're going to add into the game? No. Based on what we're seeing, I don't think that. Is there a possibility, though? Yeah, I think it's still plausible that they will add that back into the game, where, like, if you touch an enemy, you get hurt. But who knows? I don't know. This is a much more modern Castlevania in many ways.
Yeah, and you know, that made me think too, because, like, if you were to get something out of this, let me confirm with you, is it for you the search action isn't the number one thing you need? Like, if they said this wasn't a search action game, you know what, that might be pretty cool, to be honest.
It's a Castlevania game.
Right. Well, what I mean is, like, if as they were revealing it, it doesn't look like there's a save point or a map, a traditional. It's just like, because I loved on the Dominus collection, the
Haunted Castle Revisited.
Loved it.
Same.
If they could just do more of that, it's so tight. It looks good. The soundtrack, like, even without, I mean, that didn't have Igarashi or any of the typical talent, probably some producers, but.
So that was done by M2. So M2, they're and M2 is the ones that have been doing all these Konami collections for the most part. They did the Gradius collection. They did the Contra collection, all the Castlevania collections. And at this point, I don't think M2 will be doing, if there is a 3D collection for, like, the N64 games and the Lament and Curse, I don't think that M2 will do it. I just don't think that they have, not that I'm saying they don't have the talent, they do, but they are predominantly more 2D.
Yeah, more 2D in like, not to downplay those 3D games, but they, like, M2 has a certain caliber in which they are recreating an atmosphere. And that, like, I loved the Gradius collection. That was a good one. But I wonder if because, you know, Konami said there's going to be more coming out this year.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we have a mainline game, it makes me think
Belmont's Curse, right?
Yeah. It makes me think anything else would be a remake, a re-release. In fact, I bet, like, Symphony of the Night, potentially Dracula X on, like, Switch.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Why won't that happen? Is it Sony?
So, Sony, from what I understand, Sony paid for the like, they did the redo on Rondo, not just Dracula X Chronicles, which was the, like, 2.5D remake of Rondo of Blood.
Yeah.
They were the ones who paid the money to produce the Castlevania Requiem, which is basically all the stuff from the Dracula X Chronicles collection that wasn't the 2.5D remake. So Rondo's re-release with English audio, and Symphony of the Night with the redo on the localization.
Yeah, that's interesting. Then what do you? What are some ideas you have that it could be?
What? Oh, like this year? Like what?
Yeah, other things coming this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you my realistic expectations. I do not think we will get another game other than Belmont's Curse. If we do get anything, it'll be the 3D collection. That's ultimately this year. So if we're celebrating the 40th year, we'll get the 3D collection. As far as if they're going to include anything else, a bonus on that. If my wildest expectations would be either they're going to put Legends on it, because that's the only game from the franchise that from the original games, kind of like how they did with like Kid Dracula and Haunted Castle and Dracula extra games. So I think they'll put Legends on there, and then what they'll do is either do a Belmont's Revenge, meaning Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge on Game Boy. They'll either do a remake of that, or they'll do a remake of Legends. Since they're releasing what's it called? Since they're releasing Belmont's Curse and that has Sonya in it, I'm wondering if they're going to try to retcon this whole thing with Sonya, which, I wonder if they're going to try to fit Sonya back into canon in some way, shape, or form, or if we're just going to say, no, she isn't canon, but this new version of Sonya is. Cool. So if it really all depends on what Konami's plan is. They know that Sonya's popular. So are we going to do a reboot on Sonya and that's it? And just like port Legends, or maybe just don't even port Legends and just completely forget about Legends? I don't know. But to me, in my mind, that's, I think, what they'll probably do as far as like any kind of bonus. And M2, I don't know what they're working on right now. I know they were working on a shooter. I think a top-down shooter of some sort, which I think they're either done with or I don't know. They were releasing the Goemon collection, I think, too. I don't think that's out yet. Okay. So I think they're working on that as well, which still doesn't have a North American release for whatever reason. But yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what we'll get this year. I'm sure we'll get some merch. That's cool. Yeah, we'll probably get some merch, maybe some statues or something. Who knows?
You know what? The only thing they're missing right now are some like high end or good action figures. Even I know they had some before from NECA, but getting some like SH Figure Art style.
Sure.
But I want to go back to the 3D games real quick, because for some reason in my mind, I feel like Konami wouldn't spend their time redoing the 3D games.
Really interesting.
And I don't know why.
Redoing or re-releasing?
Re-releasing, or putting effort into re-releasing, only because I remember when those came out, and again, as a fan, like it maybe it was just in my bubble, but I just remember when they came out, they didn't have the big fanfare like the 2D ones would when they would come out.
The 64 game, the first one did. The first one got excellent reviews.
That one
did, that one was well liked. Contrary to popular belief on the internet nowadays, it's very much but Legacy didn't get as good of reviews, and I think it was mostly like a too little too late kind of thing.
I think so. People were moving on.
People were kind of done with the N64 at that point. It was pretty much on its way out. And then Resurrection, of course, got canned. But Lament got very good reviews and was well liked. And same thing with Curse. Like, Curse is an excellent game. It's really, really good. And I think Curse is probably the best 3D Castlevania to date in terms of technicality. I like 64 better. And Legacy, but like in terms of like being a technical achievement, I think Curse of Darkness probably stands out as the technically best of all of the 3D games. So I do think that they will re-release them. There's too much of a fan outcry for it. They'd be stupid. Good. It's money on the table. It'd be stupid of them not to.
Then I guess that's what I was missing out then, that because I have not beat any of the 3D ones. I've played them all.
Okay.
I owned them all, but I never was able to beat them. And I don't know how much of that was just all the different games coming out around those times. And it was like 3D then was like, pick your poison. Like, what kind of 3D are you wanting to be in?
There's a lot of games out at that point,
Yeah.
unless you were like really into it. Like I remember getting those games. Lament was one of the first games that I got for a PS2. Yeah. I got Lament and Contra Shattered Soldier. Those were the two games that I bought like first. And Curse of Darkness, when that came out, I bought it. Bought it when it came out. So they're great. I really like those games. They're a lot of fun. Cool. But they're definitely they need a re-release at this point. I don't even think they're on Steam. Maybe they are. I can't remember.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. When I've been playing them really recently, it's just emulators. But you know what? Even thinking about that, it's like, re-releasing them with the quality of life, modern day quality of life features would just make it a much more seamless experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. I do wonder what they would do with the 64 games in terms of the emulation and, bringing them up to date in terms of like quality of life, just for a modern day controller, because really the Castlevania 64 games are so like N64 specific with their controls.
3D. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's such a like very specific way to play that game. It's not a hard game to learn how to master. It's tricky because
it has its own way of traversing or interacting with the environment, which I always like that when you play a game and it's like, oh, this feels a little different. Because
N64 games were built for that controller.
Yeah.
You cannot like, I've tried to play like Mario 64 on like my Wii U Pro controller, and I just can't. I need an N64 controller to play that kind of game. So
and that's why Nintendo sells all those controllers, because they know like some games feel so good that way
for schmucks like me to rebuy.
Yeah, oh no, same here. But
right.
A couple things I wanted to talk about real quick. We'll wrap this up. So like memorabilia, we talked about. I used to have a ton of Castlevania memorabilia. I think in 2015, I sold my entire physical video game collection. It was gigantic, and I actually don't miss it. Like I'm not, it's always been. I always had the things physically so I could play them. Now that things are easy to play, but I do miss that I sold a lot of my Castlevania memorabilia. Although behind me you could see the
Aria.
Yeah, I cannot point whatever. There's
the advanced collection, right?
Yeah, and then the light from the Dominus collection.
Nice. Yeah.
Which it's funny because when I heard the song, I was like, oh, that's one of my favorite songs from Portrait of Ruin. Mm-hmm. But it has nothing to do with Order of Ecclesia.
Yep.
But the Super Deluxe sets are very nice. They are nice. With a bunch of stuff. It's very simple. So, I mean, I'm glad they're doing that stuff. What would you say is like your favorite piece of Castlevania memorabilia that you have?
Is
there too many, actually?
Oh, man. I mean, just like, I'll just point real quick so you could see. So that whole wall is Castlevania.
Oh,
that entire wall, even the glass case is all Castlevania. So it's too many. It's too many to think of. I would probably say, if we're talking like official, I really love the Castlevania 64 retail poster that I picked up not too long ago.
That artwork is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I also really like the Millennium strategy guide poster too, because that's like a unique image that hasn't been released anywhere. But in terms of just unique things, probably the Castlevania EGM facts, the Bloodlines facts that I found on eBay. That's did you? I don't know if you've seen the video that I did on that.
I must have known then.
There's a fax that I found that was sent from Konami's office in Chicago to EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and I bought it on eBay. It was like for sale with a bunch of other EGM layouts, like the magazine layouts, and I thought, who would have all this stuff? I was like, how did they, is this real? Like, how did they get all this stuff? And so I reached out to the seller before I bought it. I like watched the crap out of this listing because I search for Castlevania every single week on eBay. I'm just like, I got to find some weird, unique stuff. And I found this. And so I reached out to the seller and was like, what is this? And they explained to me it's a fax, a 9-page fax from Konami's Chicago office to EGM. And it details in-depth information about Castlevania Bloodlines, back in the day. And it's this huge, like, deep dive into the lore that they were creating at the time for Castlevania, which is totally different than the stuff that they did with Koji Igarashi. So they were at that time trying to come up with this universe. I mean, like, you've got to watch. You've got to watch that video. Because,
I'll go back and watch that then. Yeah, because I'm totally
you'll have
that.
to. Yeah, like if you're a lore guy, or if you're like, I mean, like they had, just to give you a very small segment of information, they were planning on having 3 different whips. So it wasn't just Vampire Killer. It was Vampire Killer, Death Mercury, and Excalibur. And so like different clans got different whips or whatever the case may be. And so hanging on my wall there is the fax, but the family family tree that they created, that they included in with this fax. And so and I verified that the person that was selling it was the wife of or rather the widow of of the writer who passed away, Andy I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but this was like a fax that he had because he was a massive Castlevania fan. And when he passed away, years after he passed away, his widow was like, his ex-wife was like, I'm just going to sell this stuff. Like, I don't need it. I'm just going to get rid of it. Somebody will want it online. And that was me.
Hey, it's good for you to get it and obviously document it. So that's going to be awesome to.
Yeah, I mean, like I bought it and I like my intention was I'm going to buy this and release it to the public, because why would I, like, there's these sellers that, these resellers and all these people online that like buy stuff and then they just hide it away. Like I could have bought it and just like held on to it. And I was like, no, screw that. I'm going to release it so people know about it. And it filled in a lot of blanks in terms of the family tree and the history of Castlevania. And it was just like never before released info. So the other piece, this is the last thing I'll say, which is a really cool piece, is Tom Dubois. Do you know who that is?
Sounds familiar.
So if you've ever seen like the box art to Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra 3, like he did the box art for all those like Konami games back in the day. And for North America specifically.
Yeah, North America. Yeah.
And so he started coming back and, maybe a couple years ago, he started working for like Limited Run. They hired him to do new art, which I have for Bloodstain, the spiritual successor to Castlevania. I have Miriam art from Tom Dubois, actual art that he did, like art.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, I did a video on that too. Like I bought it from somebody online that was selling it like through Tom. So basically they were like, they were selling it for Tom, basically, I believe. So, but I was talking to those people about buying this piece of art for Miriam, which they did for Limited Run games. And I got to talking to him and he was selling, disc plates. Do you know what those are? Those metal. Yeah. So they were selling disc plates of, his box art. So I bought one for Castlevania 3 because I thought it was cool looking. Yeah. And in talking to them, they had a piece that they were going to do that it was Simon, and it was art, I think, that was supposed to be for the anniversary collection. Like the Limited Run physical anniversary.
I must have seen this video because this sounds very familiar.
And so they ended up doing, like, he finished the piece in color and everything. And so I reached out to them and I was like, do you want to do something? Like, are you like trying to release this? And like, do you want to do something where like I'll put this out and you can only get it through, like I'll announce it for you basically, and you'll sell it on the website. And they were like, yeah, sure. And so I was like, okay, you could do that, but I need a promo of it. Like I need a print of it so that way I could show them. You got to send one to me. And they were like, okay, that's no problem. So they sent me one. However, the one that they sent me is a prototype of it. So they went back. There were very few of these sold. Like they put it up for sale for like a year and it barely sold. I don't know why. It's a gorgeous piece of art, but it didn't really sell. And what they would do is they would put art up for like 1 year. Like they put up the Castlevania 3 art on the website for 1 year. They printed whatever sold. And then after that year was up, boom, it came down. Could never buy it again. So they did the same thing for the Simon piece for me. And so I promoted it on my YouTube video and I promoted it on my socials and everything. And it didn't really sell that well. Not a lot of people bought it, but my version is a prototype of that version. And it has some subtle differences. Like the spike ball, like the Morning Star ball is smaller on my version. Then I think he went back and Tom Dubois like fixed it. So it's a little bigger. So it's a 100% a 1-for-1 unique piece of art that nobody else has. So like those are the high end type things that I really am into in terms of Castlevania.
Dude, not only are those awesome, but it sounds like someone that I would look up to as a Castlevania connoisseur would actually have. Enjoy. So I appreciate that because that's the other thing about Castlevania. Again, we talk about the talent around it, the art, not just the game, the atmosphere, the music, the art. Anyway, I got to get going, but this was an awesome conversation. I would love for us to talk Castlevania again, maybe other retro gaming, especially as they trickle out more news about Belmont's curse. Like, I'm really curious what we're going to see in here. I hope it doesn't deflate us as fans of ongoing, Castlevania.
At this point, I'm very intrigued to see where they go with this. And I'm going at it with a very open mind, same as I did for Lords of Shadow. I think the big difference, though, is Lords of Shadow, the music just did not hook me, the atmosphere and everything. We can get into Lords of Shadow another time. But the point I'm trying to make is everything that I've seen about Belmont's Curse tells me that they're for the most part honoring the legacy of Castlevania, but going in a different direction, a unique and different direction that we haven't seen before. And you also got to keep in mind, this is not a Japanese developer. They're a third party Western French developer, a French developer. And so they're going to do things different than Konami Japan would, so, and that's how it goes.
I like that. I like that optimism about it. So yeah, cool.